Let's do this. Figure it out.
This is an old dude. Figure it out. Here at Stokastic. If there is golf, we are here, and that is why. PGA DFS Live before lock is upon us. Even though there's no tournament, the President's Cup is on the docket, and there are a lot to break down. There are contests in the lobby. We're going to talk about these teams, try to find an edge, and of course, have some fun tonight. I'm Ben Rasa. I am joined by Geoff Ulrich, as I always am. All right, so we are little enemies here. You know, you're team international, I'm team US, even though I kind of like the international squad better. What do you think about your boys? You think you guys are going to pull the big upset?
You really should be like an international guy, Ben. I mean, you're like our ace in the hole. You're like our defector. You're our spy. Look, yeah, I mean, this one is, I'm trying as I go through this week, like to find the energy and like the motivation to bet on the international side and just really go for the upset. I just don't think I can do it. Every time I think about it, I think about like Scotty Scheffler and Burns out there just roaring the crowd behind them and just absolutely being, monstrous, which the American team is. So I'm very excited for the DFS side of it and stuff. I think there's some good strategy stuff we'll get into it, and the matchups, of course. But yeah, man, I mean, this seems like it's just going to go one way, and it's just going to be lopsided. But some really interesting matchups at the start. The first two matches feels like it could just set the tone for the entire week, doesn't it? Like,
and that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with, though, because there's going to be a game theory opportunity of, do you build some lineups with the international squad winning and what that would mean? I do think that's going to be a tournament strategy, even though I, like most, think that the U.S. is going to have not a difficult time doing this. So let's dive into it. We need to start with just the President's Cup itself. So we've got, pairings where you play best ball. You've got pairings where you play alternate shot. At the end, everyone plays, the singles matches. So when we have such a weird thing, I guess my first question is, do we want to try to target guys that we think are going to play in every session?
Yeah, like I think for DFS, like that's where you should be sort of starting to think, right? Like obviously you start with, we know what like the teams are basically the teams, at least for one side. We know what the American teams are going to look like.
Yes. We
got the powerhouse. We got X and Cantlay. We got Thomas and Spieth. It looks like it's going to be Scheffler and Burns right now, obviously. So that's, that's good to decipher. And I wouldn't be shocked if that pairing stayed together as well. But again, where it gets interesting is like, what is the international side going to do? I don't think you can have that kind of level of certainty with the internationals. I think their whole path to victory is just being as unpredictable as possible and just literally throwing the kitchen sink at it and just trying to mix up some magic. Like, I don't think that you're going to see maybe Scott and Matsuyama, like is the pairing that they just lean on. And that's the one that gets put out for like all four matches. But I think you're going to see a lot of movement from the internationals. I think where you can really pin it down is saying those teams on the Americans are probably going to be like leaned on heavily, but I think there's individuals on the internationals we can sit here and be very confident about. That's the other thing. It's like the American side, confident about the teams, the internationals, I think you can be confident about individuals. And I'm just talking about volume here. I'm not talking about like winning or anything yet. So,
because step one is volume. Normally, we don't play any, I can't think of anything, and maybe I'm missing something, but pretty much anytime we're talking about DFS golf, nobody's saying, well, this guy's going to get 72 holes and this guy's only going to get 54, and I like him, but we might not see him. It's a little different. And then
unless you're playing Danny Lee on
that's
the red,
true.
Right? And then you got to worry about the 54 holes.
18 holes if we're fortunate. We're dealing with a showdown kind of mentality where we have a captain. So that's, again, something that we don't see often on the PGA side, is you're getting the 1.5x captain mode. So again, we'll dive into the individual players in a second.
Yeah.
But when you see that, is it just that same concept of just kind of, how we do it with the NFL in terms of building for something like this?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it is. And like I said, I think that that's where it becomes interesting. Like, I think a lot of people will be taking, like, looking to take the cheaper pair. Like, if you're obviously the American side is going to be hugely popular. And I do think there's definitely value in putting in international heavy lineups. Obviously it's massive boomer bust, but like, there's going to be so few of those combos. But a lot of people will be looking to take the cheaper Americans. So I think that's sound, although it may not be as sound as people think, because, like, Spieth and Thomas is the perfect example. If that pairing gets split up, I would be like 95% certain it's probably Spieth who's sitting, not Thomas.
Yeah,
there could be a situation where Thomas isn't playing well, I guess. And I think that goes with Scheffler and Burns too, right? Like, Burns may not play the whole matchup. So you got to be careful with that. I think that's where the international side is very interesting. Sungjae M, Scott, and to an extent, Hideki. These guys have to play all 5 matches. Like, they just have to, right? I mean, there's too big a gap between the top 3, top 4 guys on the internationals and their bottom tier. They can't afford to sit Sungjae. I think Sungjae M is my favorite captain's pick. I really do. He went 3-1 in a losing effort last time. He's going to be out there for all 5 matches. He just finished second in the FedEx Cup playoffs.
So giving people, because again, we got just some phenomenal people behind the scenes, all the data, all the tools that Alex and the team work on. We have ownership projections for this. And to give people some insight, right now, the top 6 projected captains in terms of ownership, all 6 are Americans. You don't get to a potential international captain until the 7th guy down the list.
And I don't have those up, but is it Sungjae? I would assume
it is Adam Scott, actually.
Adam Scott. See,
and Sungjae is.
I guess Adam Scott's really cheap. That's like, so that's understandable. But
yeah, Sungjae's right next to him. So
right.
But it just shows what you're talking about. Like, that's going to be something that we can kind of focus on.
And again, for DFS, Ben, like, the internationals don't need Sungjae, or the internationals don't need to win the President's Cup for Sungjae M to be the top point producer. John Rahm almost was, like, he was one singles match away from being the top point producer at the Ryder Cup when they lost by 11 points.
Yes.
Like, we're just volume. Like, Sungjae M can perform great. He could drag his teams to wins. And the other part of using Sungjae as a captain, I think there's scenarios where none of the Americans play 5 matches. Like, especially if it gets out of hand early, and they're just like, yeah, just take a break, Scotty, right? Like, we don't really need you on this one. So I think there's scenarios where that happens too. But I just have a hard time projecting. And again, I'm talking about him because he is my number one. But I think there's like 3 players on the internationals that very, very good shot at playing 5 matches. And I'm very interested in like, I would be very interested in using those guys regardless of the lineup. And you brought up NFL DFS. It's the perfect example. We see teams get blown out all the time, and the captain comes from the team that's getting blown out. It's a little bit different scenario because the garbage time there leads to points. This isn't going to be that, but I think that a team being down and talent laden is also going to lead to more volume on their elite players. So
there's no doubt about it. And we're going to dive into that in a second. I will say 2 things. 1, if you are watching this, you are a true ride or die. And we know who you are, and we appreciate you guys hopping in. You want to support us, you hit the like button. I know you're already subscribed to the channel. If you're watching this, like I said, you are the true PGA DFS fans of Stokastic and our truest members of the team. I want to talk a little about PrizePicks before we talk about Quail Hollow. They sponsor this show. You see it on the screen there. Matched your first deposit up to $100 at PrizePicks. And that's that promo code AWESEMO. PrizePicks.com. If you're unfamiliar with it, you're talking about player prop-based things. No sharks, no optimize, no mass entries, up to 5 player lineups, and it's for every sport. I know this is a weird PGA week, but on a normal PGA week, we're talking about birdies are better. We're talking about fairways hit. Obviously, with the NFL, college football, everything you want is over there. A really good opportunity. Geoff, you play a lot over there as well. It's just a fun format and a different format.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the PrizePicks brings it for all the sports as well. So, I mean, NFL, you got to get in on it. But I mean, like golf throughout the season too, it's once you get used to it and just the lines are putting up and we always talk about the lines they put up for golf, greens and regs, sometimes fairways hit. You can really take advantage of it if you know the course. And obviously, if you're tuned into this show, like Ben said, you're into that stuff. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Let's talk because we're going to dive into the teams in a second. We're going to talk about all these players, but I want to ask you about the course. So this is not like Royal Melbourne. It's not the International where it's a course maybe we don't see. It's a Quail Hollow. We see it all the time. How do you go about that? Do you think it's going to be set up? So we saw Quail Hollow maybe, I don't know, like 4 years ago get a major. And it was always interesting to see, like, is it going to be Wells Fargo or is it going to be the PGA Championship? Do you think that this is going to be a unique setup or is this going to be the Quail Hollow we always say?
So, yeah, I mean, right off the bat, they did reroute the holes for this event. And I think it's just like the Americans, again, like this just speaks to the Americans are like the bully who just like want every advantage right now. And
that's what we do here.
Yeah. That's right.
Hashtag America.
You big meanies. They took the three toughest holes and they put them in the middle of the back nine. So instead of 16, 17, and 18 being the last three holes, they put them to play as 13, 14, and 15 this week. And why did they do that? Because that means those holes are going to be in play for pretty much every match, unless there's huge blowouts. There very well could be this week, but they want those holes in play. Why? Because they're longer and they're tougher. Who has the better tee to green players? The Americans. Who has 8 players that ranked in the top 40 in driving distance last year? It's the Americans. The internationals have 3 players who ranked in the top 40 in driving distance last year. So, this isn't like, it's not sneaky. Everyone knows what's happening here, but they're doing it. And that's fine. They're doing it under the guise of, oh, these are the nicest holes on the course. We want these to be played so everyone can see them. That's not why they're doing it. So yeah, I unfortunately the course, Quail Hollow is what it is. It's a long championship course. It's not like tricky in any way. It's not fancy. It's long par fours. It's some tree laden fairways. It's the rough can get played up and be really thick. It was I expect it'll probably be thick for this, just like it was at the PGA Championship. And you better be good off the tee. That's why Rory McIlroy comes here and he makes this look like a pitch and putt while everyone is struggling to make par. And Max Homa, to an extent, a really strong off the tee player. It's all in favor of the Americans here, and the venue is also slanted in their favor, I think. So that's Quail Hollow. It's just another advantage to the American team, in my opinion.
I would agree. I mean, tee to green, driving distance, all of those things come into play here. We've seen the course. I don't know how that works. Like, you get a say of where, like when you're home, you try to get a course that kind of fits what your team does. How does that work? Not that that's important, but I was just kind of wondering.
Yeah, no, I mean, you basically pick the venue and you can kind of, you can go off of, I think for the internationals, they don't, it's almost, again, it's almost easier for the Americans because the internationals, they have to like cater to different countries. Like they're like, okay, we got to go somewhere in Canada. So obviously like it can't be that picky. There's only a few courses there.
Go to South Africa.
Exactly. Right. So I think they're probably more limited in that, but at the same time, like Royal Melbourne has proven to be a pretty good venue for the internationals. It's a little bit trickier. I think it brings more like the short game and just, just a little bit more different shots into it. Whereas a place like Quail Hollow, you're hitting long irons and mid irons. You've got to be good off the tee. It's not a finesse course. So I think it's a little bit easier for the Americans because there's just so many courses to choose from. They can pick and choose. They can tailor it how they want it. And yeah, but I mean, it's open. I mean, for both sides to do that, it's just a little bit easier for the Americans to do it, obviously.
All right, here we go. Diving into the team's international squad. So first thing I want to ask you, we've got, because of course, a couple guys are sitting. Munoz and Bez are the 2 guys sitting. Clearly that's going to really hurt their ownership. Do you think that there's something to that, or is that saying, you know what, why mess around? We know they're not playing in the first round. Let's just cross them off. How do you balance that kind of game theory component?
Yeah, and like that's the tough question this week, right? I mean, I think that the internationals, first of all, everybody has to play at least one team match. That's another quirk of this.
Yeah.
Like they
so
can't
minimum of 2 total.
Right. So there you go. So like they will be out there. And there's a very good chance that like they will be out there in the next wave because, you know, the internationals are underdogs. And, you know, like I said, I mean, they're going to do whatever they can to kind of find some kind of winning formula. So I would be more prone to probably throwing one of those guys in as like my scrub. At the same time, like it's really just, it depends on what kind of lineup you're building. Like, yeah, if you're building more of like to play it close or like the international side, like some kind of like low owned side, I would be much more prone to throw like Bezuidenhout in or something like that. I think he's probably the player I would lean to out of those two, of the two sitters for the international side. But I think for the most part, like just saying crossing them off is also fine. These are players who like they might factor in if they get a team win and then a singles win, but it's also no guarantee that they could. And we just have, you know, we have a bunch of cheap international players to choose from already. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at them. I mean, they're not must plays by any means. They're really low owned players who you should kind of be really just being very choosy about when you're sprinkling them in. And it's probably mainly in like international stacks.
It definitely seems, you know, we're going to have to play psychologist, whatever, to infer some of this, that the international team is going to be quicker to deviate from whatever they're planning because they're heavy underdogs. Like if somebody comes out and rolls in the first match, they're going out again. Like they will just keep playing. So I think there's an element of that. Whereas with the Americans, you know, we've seen these pairings before. They're not going to break up Xander and Cantlay unless something drastic happens. But I think that any pairing on the international side is live to be chopped up pretty quickly. We're based off, you know, pretty anecdotal 10, 15 holes if they play bad.
Yeah. And even if they don't play bad, like I think that there's a good chance that like Immelman has just scripted, you know, kind of the first couple days, like that, you know, we're going to do this. Bezuidenhout's maybe going to be my alternate shot guy just because, you know, good iron player, good putter. And I'm going to pair him with like maybe a Pendrith or something like that, because it was really good off the tee. I would assume they have kind of like some script for these two. And I think there's a better chance that you'll see them potentially even play 3 matches. You know, if Bezuidenhout does go out and win with like another player on day 2, I think there's a very good shot that you'll see them immediately on day 3, because whatever's working for the internationals is probably going to get another shot. Right. So yeah, you know, they're probably better GPP plays in a way, but they also, you know, the risk is just that like nothing works for the internationals. And it's just like you get like 2 matches from them, and then it's just nothing. So whereas at least with guys like Kisner down there, you know, he's going to be playing with like a good player, like a really good player. So there's a good chance that even if he only plays, you know, 3 times or whatever, he picks up a couple wins.
So I want to go back to something that you talked about at the top, you know, kind of correlating or pairing, because let's not bury, I'm not going to say bury the lead. Cam Smith and Neiman in particular would have been guys that are playing 3, 4, 5 matches, in my opinion, if they were here, and they're not. To me, Sanjay, unless he plays god awful, is the guy they got to roll out there basically for every session. Would you like if you were going 1-to-1, like to me, like JT might be one, you know, him, Scheffler, those types. Obviously, the Americans are so deep, it's hard to do it. But for the international team, there's only a couple guys where I'm just like, okay, they've got experience, they've got talent, they have to be out there basically all the time.
Yeah, there's like, to me, I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anyone, but like for me, it's Sanjay, Hideki, Scott, and
Kim.
Tom Kim. I mean, that's where we're at with the international side. Like I was gonna say Connors. Like I think if Connors and Im win the first match, I mean, first of all, like you will see them probably together, but like I think Corey Connors is unfortunately for the internationals, like at the level where if like they need him to just be like as good as possible, and probably they should be putting him out there for like all 5 matches, because, you know, tee to green, he can match a lot of these players. If his putter gets hot, I mean, who knows? I mean, But like, outside of those top three, like Connors maybe has a shot at it. Maybe even Siwoo has a shot at it. I mean, we're talking about a player who won the Players Championship when he was like 20. Like some of these internationals could just get really confident, get really hot, and just be ridden. So Siwoo is really interesting for that. I think there's opportunity kind of in that middle tier with guys like Connor, maybe even Tom Kim and Siwoo, where they win the first day, and it's just like you just keep seeing them. So I don't know. For me though, yeah, it's really Sanjay, and then it's just no one else. I don't know what Hideki's going to do this week. I think he's got obviously a great shot at playing a lot too, but like if it goes bad for him off the start, I mean, I think him and Scott will get mixed up, and I think there's a better chance that like Hideki would just like take a resets rest over Scott. So
to me, in terms of, I'm just not even talking about how they're going to perform. In terms of safety of volume, it would be Sanjay 1. I think it would be Adam Scott 2, Decky 3, and then a gap to Connors. And then it's wild cards. I think that Tom Kim has a chance to him and KH Lee play. And if they win, they're going to get rolling, out there. And if they keep winning, they will keep playing. I doubt that happens, but I think there's a path to a guy like that playing a bunch of matches.
I actually like that. I like that pairing, man. I love it. I'm glad they're rolling it out in the first too. And I'll be honest, I like their opponent. Like, I mean, Morikawa has not been the dominant Morikawa that we've known. Cam Young, absolutely, he can bomb it down there, but it's his first big event. If Tom Kim starts popping in 30 footers on the first couple holes, you're going to see some nerves from a rookie. So and KH Lee is just a dude who's continually underrated. I really like that pairing. I like them for the first match as well. I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely going to be on the underdogs for the internationals, like just from a betting perspective on the first round. I don't know. I mean, it's probably foolhardy, but yeah, you can get lines good enough that like, you can take a couple, we win one match and we're kind of like up units. So
no doubt. I think for me, that's the most intriguing pairing. Tom Kim and KH Lee. I like that. Cam Davis is such a wild man. I'm interested to see. I don't like the matchup against Scheffler and Burns. I think it's a pretty tough spot for him and Siwoo. But
pairing Cam Davis and Siwoo Kim is just
that's what the internationals have to do, though.
I actually really like their pairings. Like I do. I think Connors and Sanjay are there. It's a very underrated team, right? Like they're both. That's going to be a tough out too. That's probably my second favorite spot. Like I like them over Thomas and Spieth tomorrow. I think that line. I think that line is wrong. I think it should be closer to a pick 'em. Like it's very underrating Sanjay M. And Corey Connors is a player who he's going to hit every fairway. He's going to, because that's what he does. So Spieth is probably like, I don't think this is a great course for Spieth either. So, right off the top, we've talked about a couple spots I like. I think the Kim Lee one is a little bit more risque for sure. It's more of just, I just like seeing those guys paired together, but like Connors and him, love that pairing. Really like it.
And again, looking behind the tools that we have, the ownership is just really not there, particularly at captain for the international squad. And even for raw ownership, Sanjay is up there, but you're seeing a lot of guys towards the bottom for the international squad. I am interested. And I do think, again, we have to take the totality of it. I wouldn't be even remotely surprised if tomorrow this is close, or even, the internationals get off to a good start. I don't think it'll hold, but I wouldn't be stunned to see them start pretty quick.
I think that, as obviously as the week goes, the town will probably flow over, but this is, you look at it on paper and you say, okay, I mean, maybe there's a shot here, right? So at the very least, there's a couple matchups I like, and certainly Connor's M is one of them. And I was just going to say, like the other thing is you also have to understand, like there's two match play formats in play for the team event. There's the best ball and there's the alternate shot. They're starting with the best ball, which is all four players playing their own ball, and or foursome. Sorry, it's not called best ball. It's called foursome.
It's so confusing how they label it.
I know, I hate it. But yeah, so it's foursomes. And the Americans, I think, started that way because they know it's probably their best format. They used to always get in trouble playing the Europeans because the Euros are just, they just seem to have more in tune styles of games where the Americans were, which ball do we want to hit? I'm teeing off for, like, they just, they couldn't figure it out. So they're starting with foursomes though, which means everyone's playing a ball. Definitely favors the Americans when you can get 8 guys in who are of their talent level. So something else to keep in mind, but
yeah. And then it's, again, I think, to speak to the other side of it though, I'll single out Cam Davis. Cam Davis, an alternate shot. That's
right.
a tough ask because he does so many things that are a problem. But when he can be crazy aggressive and he has a teammate that they're going to be playing his ball a lot, if Siwoo posts normal scores, Cam Davis can go for it. So that's kind of what I'm interested. We had a question. So if you have Connors and Im, would you not want to have JT because they play tomorrow or not worry about it? Obviously,
it's a good question.
It's a good question for sure. It's kind of like showdown in the NFL where you're going to be able to do some things that don't make logical sense.
Yeah.
It's not great. I would bump down JT, but there's also scenarios where JT loses tomorrow like 2-1, and then he rips off 4 dominating wins and you need him. But I think overall, yes, looking at who they play is a good way to bump the guys that they're playing down.
Yeah. And I think just because it's just such a limited sample, we only have 5 matches to deal with. I would say, obviously you could make a lineup with those two, but I would go, if you're captaining him, I would definitely go right off the Thomas Spieth pairing. There's too many other options. Again, you can pivot to Scheffler, you can pivot to Cantlay. You can even go heavier on Finau and Homa, because you look at that matchup. The second biggest underdogs are Pendrith and Pereira, even though they're playing what would arguably be the weakest, well, maybe the second weakest American team in Finau and Homa. But regardless, there's a good chance that Finau and Homa, big hitters, Homa's got the course knowledge. They get out there for 3-team events if they start off well. I think there's too many ways to pivot, and it's a great question. This is why we obviously needed the match info, but take heed of who you're captaining and who they're playing against. If you're captaining Cantlay, probably going to want to leave out Matsuyama and Scott. If you're captaining, if you're captaining Homa, don't play Pendrith and Pereira with them, because those guys, and that's even a worse scenario, because when those guys get hammered by Homa, they probably won't be back. So definitely take into account who your guys are playing.
So that's, I think, even more important, and it's a perfect segue to the American side. If you captain, say, Xander, and he's playing, obviously you're captaining him, you're saying he's going to be playing really well. Cantlay has to play well because they're not going to break them up. They're just not. So if Xander does play well, Cantlay's going to play well. On the international side, your captain's partner tomorrow could end up not playing well with your captain still getting there, because they could split them up much, much quicker. They're not going to split up Xander and Cantlay if they're playing well. Mito and Penn, they could get split up right after day one, even if they don't play that bad. So that's one wrinkle I think we can explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if Matsuyama and Scott win, maybe the internationals get wiped out in the bottom 3, and they're okay, we got to split these guys up, because we can't be throwing C Dave and Siwoo together anymore, because there's too many tree balls here, right? So whatever the matter, absolutely. I think the American teams, and that's why I hit off the top, American teams are more reliable, but the volume on the top 3 of the international is probably even more reliable. So, yeah.
When we look at, so again, the American side is going to have the predominant ownership of captain. It's going to have just predominant ownership. They should win. Homa's playing amazing. He won last week. Finau, JT and Spieth, Cantlay and Scheffler and Burns. Just madness going on. Do you see any value? You mentioned Morikawa and Cam Young. I'm a little sketched out by that pairing. And then we've got obviously Kisner and Billy Ho are watching.
Yeah.
What do you make of the bottom half of kind of the American roster?
So yeah, here's my take. I think that again, like I'm not big on the Thomas Spieth going up against Connors in round one. I do think though that team, if they win, will be together. Like I don't think there's any chance. And it's the same with Cantlay and Schauffele. I think that the other teams do have like, here's one scenario. I'd be okay playing Scheffler as my captain and not playing Burns at all. Because I think that there is a chance where, Scheffler comes in with Kisner or Billy Ho goes with Scheffler and Burns being a rookie probably sits. I think there's lots of scenarios where Burns is just, okay, pal, like we got to get Kisner in there. You're the rook, go sit. Like it's not really, I don't even know if it's smart because Burns is like good. And like, he's far better option than using Billy Ho or Kisner at this point. But I think that will happen. I don't think Burns will play all the time with Scheffler. I think there's even a chance like Spieth maybe sits and does that, but I feel more confident that Burns will be a guy who sits. Morikawa and Young, again, I don't have any confidence in that pairing, to be honest. And then Finau and Homa is actually, and I mentioned this, I think that's a sneaky pair that could really last. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Morikawa, Young, and kind of Burns to an extent. Those are the guys you should kind of be picking on figuratively of, okay, if people are going to go like Scheffler, don't use Burns with them because everyone's going to use Burns with them. And maybe Burns just plays like crud. And then Kisner comes in and then Kisner gets hot with the putter and it's Burns. You don't see Burns till the singles. I think that's a very possible scenario. And then again, Finau and Homa, I'm not sure what Homa's, I know Homa's probably projecting very popular. Actually, that's pretty interesting. Like his ownership is actually out there where Finau's the sixth. So in terms of like the top 6 Americans, Finau's last. I don't even hate that then. I mean, I think that captaining Tony Finau has some legitimacy because I don't know. I just like that pairing. I don't really have a good reason for it, Ben. I just kind of like the pairing.
No, I mean, listen, a lot of this is going to be gut feel. We've got the tools that you can use.
You got maybe the two players with the best recent form, right?
Yeah. I didn't like Homa last week. That did not work out. Last week, oh my God. I'm so glad we don't have to recap.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get a Grillo-Benny M showdown there for a bit, but they both fell off eventually, as they always do.
So let me this is more, maybe you have insight into this. This is more a question because I'm not, I'll be honest, like I watched President's Cup, but I'm not super familiar with historical nature of it. Day 2, you have 5 foursomes. Do you think that there are 4 guys, Bez, Munoz, Kisner, and Billy Ho. Do you think that any of them will not play again on the second day?
Yeah, so I'm pretty confident there's holding off Horschel and Kisner because it's the alternate shot. I think that they see those guys as high end putters. They'll be able to, if there's a tough shot, they get Kisner in there on the greens. That's where they want to take advantage of. I think there's a good chance that one of Bez and Munoz could actually sit, because if things are rolling for the international squad, the last thing they're going to do is try and do something drastic. I think Munoz could be the odd man out. That's just my feel for it. Again, he's kind of like it's like having 2 Siwoo Kims on the team with Munoz. Like, how much volatility do we want out there?
Davis.
Yeah, and Cam Davis. So he could absolutely come in, but I think if the internationals are leading, I definitely see a path where Munoz is just okay, we'll see day 3. I think Bezadenhout has a very good chance to play day 2 because he sets up as that kind of Horschel type prototype, just a ridiculous putter, obviously, and he's just very good in a number of different areas. So I think you'll see Bezadenhout week 2, or day 2, but I think there's a possibility you see that on the international side. Whereas I really think that Kisner and Horschel, they're going to come in for the alternate shot. And if you are projecting that and you agree with my take, that means 2 of these teams are getting broken up, by the way. Most likely. I don't think they're going to march them out together. It just doesn't make sense.
No, there's, how many times do I say 0% chance and something happens? There's 0% chance that happens. It wouldn't make any sense because alternate shot, you were trying to blend a super golfer. And that would not be a super golfer by any extent. And that's why
shortest drivers.
I would be stunned if Kisner or Bez don't play in the second match because they are primed to be a perfect pairing for players when you're doing alternate shot because they have an extreme skill set. So I get it, but that does mean, of course, every guy that's subbed in, you're going to have to find 2 guys on each team that will not be playing in the second session. Is it going to be based off who loses?
Why don't we play the game? Like, who do you think Kisner's coming in with?
This seems too extreme. Do you think there is a world if Scheffler and Burns got dusted that it would be him and Scheffler and Burns would sit?
No, I do. I think that might even happen regardless. Like that is my thought process. I'm not sure if it's going to be Billy Ho or Kisner. I have in my mind that Billy Horschel and Scheffler are like buddies for some reason, but I could be completely off on that. But everybody seems to like Kisner as well. But I really think Burns is going to sit. Maybe if they win by like 5, they'll just be okay. Well, we'll find someone else. And I mean, like Finau and Homa could go on and muck it up too, right? And then it's just an easy choice. You know, maybe they just get Finau out there because he's a veteran. They give Homa a chance to take a breath.
He did play last week.
He did play last week. He's going to be super pumped. Like, you know, there's a lot of scenarios where Homa just comes out and it's just like, there's too much adrenaline running through the veins. So there's scenarios like that, but I really think Burns and Scheffler, like I said, Burns is the rookie. I think Scheffler just being such a dominant, you know, player that they'll just try and blend in like one of the 2 veterans with them.
I can't really pronounce this. Cost to be flow. Any MLB game picks, my friend. You don't want that here, but what you want to do? Go to Odd Shop or YouTube. We filmed plenty of MLB picks. It's there. It's sitting there. All those good takes from Lindquist and the entire team. Go check those out. Odd Shop or YouTube. Sports betting wing of Stokastic. You will absolutely enjoy what you find over there. Let's play the game on the other side, and then we'll put some finishing touches on this. Bez is coming in. I think there's a chance that Munoz is held out. The problem with the internationals, like for me, half the American team is safe no matter what they do. Mm-hmm. The internationals, Sanjay, Scott, and Hideki, I think are safe. I think anyone else could sit in the second wave and it wouldn't stun me.
Yeah. Yeah. The Tom Kim KH Lee pairing. I mean, you could see Munoz and Bez. That's actually one scenario I could see where maybe they've told these guys, okay, you 2 are playing together, prepare, because regardless of what happens, like we're going to pull one of the South Koreans, we're going to pull the Davis pairing, or we're going to pull the Pendrith Pereira pairing, because probably they're not going 3-0. So you guys go prepare. You're coming in for one of those teams. I could see that. And I actually think that almost makes sense. The pairing actually kind of fits too, right? Like, you know, Munoz is pretty good off the tee. Bezuidenhout obviously far better at everything else. Well, not far better, but he's definitely better, especially he's far better around the greens, actually, 100%. So I actually see that as a very possible scenario that you get a Munoz-Bezuidenhout pairing. And maybe, now that we're considering it, that actually gives these guys a little bit more upside, because if they come in and win day 2, you're going to see them day 3. So
yes,
I get, it just speaks to how volatile the bottom 6 are. Kim, Lee, bottom 8, Kim, Lee, Davis, Kim, Pendrith, Pereira, Bezuidenhout, Munoz, man. Like, you can have to catch lightning in a bottle.
That's where it's going to be won, though. Like, yeah. You know, when you look at these large field tournaments, that is where it's going to be won. I'm just so interested to see which pairings. It's so hard. It's fascinating, but like,
in a way, we should be happy about Mito Pereira not having any form, but like, again, like he just about won the PGA Championship. This is a good setup for Pendrith and Pereira.
Yeah, like, they could stick together the whole way.
They have the distance off the tee. They're probably the 2. I know it's Taylor Pendrith, and like most people, I barely even know who he was before the season, but like,
yeah, that guy.
I mean, like, my problem is like I like Finau and Homa, so like I wish they were like matched up against Morikawa. Then I'd be very interested there. But again, it's just you've got to take harsh steps. You're going to have to take a hard stance in one way or the other. So maybe it's not on Pendrith and Pereira, but I think that there's pretty solid arguments for one of those bottom three international squads to just maybe even use both in the first one. And just, if you hit the, proverbial runner, like you will be so far ahead if these guys like clean up in team event, like maybe even go 2-0-1 or something, or 1-0-2 or something. You're like, whew.
So we got about 5 minutes left here, and I kind of want to put a bow on what we've done, because I actually think we've run through at least some of the scenarios that you need to think about when you're trying to build here. Because the other part of it, what we can't know is, that who the captains are going to look to match up. Like you have two schools of thought. You could take Sanjay and try to put him against the weakest pairing and secure a point. Or you could say, well, we need our big guns to go against theirs to knock, the best pairings. And that's always hard to anticipate. Is there anything else that we really haven't covered in terms of things that you're going to try to explore to ultimately build your lineups this week?
Yeah. So, again, I think that when I'm doing this, I'm going to take advantage of two things. Sorry, for some reason, all the odds that I had open just decided to reload. So here we go. If I don't have them up in front of me, I'm going to forget who's playing. But there's two things I'm going to take advantage of. People are going to be scared off of using the high-end international teams in their captain spot. And again, we talked about the volume for the individuals versus the teams. I think that's actually a mistake by the field here. Like, I really do. So I want to be taking advantage of that. And then, on the other side of it, going overboard with like the captains, the pairings for the Americans, I think everyone's just assuming that like Cantlay and Schauffele and like Thomas and Spieth, they're just going to be melded together. I think that you can find an edge there where if you're captaining Thomas and play him without Spieth, that's like something I might explore doing as well. Again, like we're talking about big field tournaments and strategy and game theory. Everyone's going to be going with, the pairings. And if you go off it, like, I think there's a legit chance, like, you could get paid off in that sense where, maybe you use Thomas without Spieth and then you use it like in a flex, you use like a cheaper pairing or something like that. Like you play them with, I don't know, one of the international side, but those are my main kind of two just leans where I'm looking at in the matchups and how this is going to go. My main thing is just, I really think people are overlooking the international captain thing. Like I'm almost shocked by the ownership here. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure Sanjay is going to go like 0-4-1 now, but I just feel like that. I just feel like people are they're out to space in this. Like he's going to play 5 matches.
If he goes 0-4-1, you've done your job.
Yeah.
Like you have to live with that. I want to kind of drill down in the few minutes that we have remaining. Would you be okay with a team that is an international captain and 5 Americans?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm talking about with Sanjay. Like, I think that people are just overlooking that you can do that and you can win.
I think that's the type of, so when we talk about, again, I'm going to use the NFL because most people watching are more familiar with this format in NFL. Naturally, a 3-3 is super common. A 4-2, mostly geared towards 4 on the favorites, 2 on the dogs. And then the 5-1 onslaught. In this case, it'd be 5 Americans, 1 international. Yes, it's unlikely. But if you stack the international squad, that's going to be very crazy. But in the fluke event that they win, and I guess in the 1% chance they roll, you would be very live. Or the captain of the dog with an onslaught against it. That is something, it's not like football where there's correlation of like, defense and offense and whatnot. Sanjay can coexist. They could get crushed and he could secure 4 points.
Rahm. It basically happened to Rahm at the Ryder Cup. Like, it didn't exactly hit, but it was one match. It was a singles match away from hitting. Like, he was dominant in the teams, and going into the teams, if he had won the singles, he was the guy. He was the guy you would have needed to have. So, I don't know. It's just one way to play it. It could work out. It could not. But with the ownership being the way it is, like, I definitely like that strategy.
It's going to be fascinating. We're here for it. Again, Stokastic, if you are looking, you see it right there. Click the link below or use the code stokastic.com/join. PGA Live before lock, 50% off any weekly pass. you want those tools, not just for this week, but for going forward, whether it's here or NFL or anything, we would love for you guys to join the team and hop in Discord and say hi to everyone once you do that. But the President's Cup is in the books. This was a wild one. Honestly, my final thoughts, being completely serious, I'm a lot more excited to make some lineups than I thought I would be. Having talked about this, it's very, very interesting.
No, it is. I know. And this is exactly what happened the last President's Cup to me too. It's like,
it's going to be expensive.
You start to think about the different scenarios and then be like, oh, this, I like this more than the match play, to be honest. So
me too.
Look, again, it's a weird week. We don't have our big fields, but I can't be recommending guys at 200 to 1 who are going to finish T64, but getting up and having matches on to bet and like on big underdogs on guys we all like, especially in the Stokastic channel anyways, like Bez and obviously our guy Cam Davis, like that's awesome. So we got 4 good days of golf coming up, roll right into football. Like Ben said, check out the site, man. There's so much good stuff. The ownerships, it's all there. So
yes, it's going to be a good time. But for me, for Mr. Ulrich, for Mike behind the glass, friends, we're going to bounce on out of here. Thanks again for tuning in. Hit that like button on your way out. And of course, once PGA comes back to normalcy, we will be here same time, same place. Good luck. In the meantime, cash those tickets and we will talk to you guys soon.